stories. Prime Minister Harris says government will continue to implement and introduce new offerings for CBI. 8 new cases of COVID-19 recorded in Dominica. And Trump pardons former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Thursday, November 26, 2020. I'm your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Nationally, Prime Minister Dr. The Honorable Timothy Harris said his administration will continue to implement and introduce new offerings for the Citizenship by Investment program and strengthen the legislative framework to support the growth of the industry. During this week's edition of Leadership Matters, Prime Minister Harris stated that in the coming year, his administration will look at how it can draw on the skills, expertise, network, and other resources of its economic citizens to bring about a more tangible impact on the progressive development of St. Kitts and Nevis.
For the next 2 years, we will continue to strengthen our program, making it the continued leader in terms of its rigor, the robustness, and the transparency of our program. We will provide a more inclusive program in terms of its people impact and benefits. We will continue to be the global leader in innovation in response to market needs, most responsive and transparent in addressing our international obligations to our partner countries and the wider international community.
The Prime Minister also said the government will seek to introduce attractive alternative investment products beyond the real estate and the Sustainable Growth Fund options.
For example, we shall consider the sale of high-end property on the prescribed conditions under the CBI. This can boost real estate developments and add to revenue flows and incentivize high-end residences across the country. So no longer then will the real estate property be part of a generally broad approved project. A single home which meets the necessary thresholds will be considered under the CBI project.
Prime Minister Harris said it is the intention of the St. Kitts and Nevis government to deepen coordination that will lead to greater harmonization of OECS CBI programs, adding that, quote, "This way we achieve more by working together." In other news, members of Parliament and specially invited guests will gather at the Rivers of Living Water Christian Center to award the 25 most remarkable teens in St. Kitts and Nevis. The special sitting will be held today, Thursday, at 6:30 p.m. The Honorable Jonel Powell will make a statement in his capacity as Minister of Youth. The public business would take the form of the reading of individual profiles by current CARICOM youth ambassadors, followed by award presentation by members of Parliament. The special sitting of the National Assembly will be carried live on ZIZ TV Channel 5 in St. Kitts and Channel 98 in Nevis. It will also be streamed live at www.zizonline.com. And as we wrap up local news, dozens of Caribbean music professionals used the downtime caused by COVID-19 to sharpen their musical skills and enhance their business knowledge. Singers, songwriters, and music producers from across the region recently took part in a 60-hour virtual regional songwriting and music production training program organized by the Caribbean Export Development Agency. Among the participants was national artist Nikhil Rogers, who told ZIZ News that one of the highlights was learning from professional producers who have worked with big name acts.
So such as Casey, who works with Precision Production. They produce stuff from Machel Montana and Kess and many of the big soca artists, as well as Christopher Birch, who did lots of work with Jamaican dancehall and reggae artists, and see how efficient they are at producing stuff and just getting it recorded, mixed, and just issued out. And that was a real big learning experience and eye-opener for me to see how fast things can get done.
Rogers was the only participant from St. Kitts and Nevis and encouraged other creatives to take advantage of these types of opportunities when they arise.
I think many other persons from St. Kitts and Nevis should be part of this because, one, it helps to increase the network of persons, producers, singer-songwriters that they get to know, and build a bigger connection with other peers from around the Caribbean. And also it would expose us to how efficient things can be and how fast we could produce stuff and put it out right now. Because right now, in this day and age, it's a very content-driven environment.
The sessions were conducted via Zoom, with the participants working with the facilitators in small groups. At the end of the workshops, the attendees wrote about 30 songs, which would then be shopped around for distribution. Rogers was involved in writing and recording 4 of those songs. The initiative was held in conjunction with the OECS Competitive Business Unit. We now move on to news on the regional scene. Dominica has recorded 8 new cases of COVID-19, bringing the number of active cases on the island to 12. Chief Medical Officer Dr. David Johnson there reported at a press briefing on Wednesday that, quote, the first of these new cases is a 30-year-old Dominican male. He denies recent travel and also denies being exposed to any known COVID-19 positive case or anyone displaying COVID-like symptoms, end quote. The second case is a 19-year-old female Nigerian student at the All Saints University who tested positive during a series of community-based rapid testing as part of the school's standard practice. The Ministry of Health subsequently administered another test which also came back positive. That student also claims to have no recent travel history and denies being in contact with any known COVID-positive individual. Dr. Johnson said the third person to test positive is a 30-year-old woman who recently traveled from high-risk countries, while the fourth, a 48-year-old male, recently traveled to Dominica from the United Kingdom. One of the cases tested positive during community testing, and the remaining 3 cases were individuals quarantined in government-certified facilities. In other news, Antigua-based carrier Liat will resume passenger flights across the Eastern Caribbean as of next Monday, after being pulled from the brink of liquidation by the government of Antigua and Barbuda. Here's more in this report.
We are calling it a soft launch, and one of the reasons for that is that we are going to have to get an understanding of where the market is.
Liat's Director of Flight Operations, Captain Arthur Senhouse, discussing the airline's new flight schedule set to begin next Monday. He says data show there is still demand for Liat's service, and the ultimate plan is to move people from as far north as Puerto Rico down to Guyana. The first part of the new service, though, will run from November 30 to December 14, and will include stops in St. Kitts, Antigua, Dominica, St. Lucia, Barbados, St. Vincent, and Grenada.
They are some of our most profitable routes. Also, most of those islands lie within the OECS framework. So there are some standards that are common across those islands, and we're depending on the fact that the commonality will give us that platform and foundation so that we can launch and expand from each of those as they demand.
He says Tortola and Guyana are expected to be added December 15. The flight will run from Thursday to Monday with an average of 6 flights per day.
Our main effort is to ensure that once you board a Liat flight on whichever day of the week you choose between Thursday and Monday, we are going to get you to your destination without you having to lay over in a different country, unlike some of the other carriers that are in the market at the moment.
Captain Senau says one of the challenges will be to navigate the rapid changes in the COVID protocols among the destinations. Meanwhile, the airline will be operating with a much leaner staff complement, a total of 163 workers compared to the 667 pre-pandemic. This includes 12 pilots, a close to 90% reduction when compared to the 109 who were previously employed with the carrier. Jamie J. O'Shea, ABS News.
We are calling.
On the international scene, U.S. President Donald Trump has pardoned his former national security advisor, Michael Flynn, who pleaded guilty to lying about his Russian contacts. Al Jazeera's Rosalind Jordan reports.
Well, thank you very much.
Even as he refuses to concede that he lost re-election to Joe Biden, U.S. President Donald Trump gave a gift to his first national security advisor, General Michael Flynn. A pardon for Flynn's crimes, namely for lying to federal investigators about his contacts with the former Russian ambassador to the U.S., Sergei Kislyak. Flynn's case was part of a legal black cloud that hung over Trump's entire presidency. Flynn's son responded on the conservative social media site Parler. "Thank you from the bottom of my heart, President Trump," and a big middle finger to Judge Emmett Sullivan. And Trump's ally, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, called Flynn a political victim. Meantime, Democratic Congressman Adam Schiff blasted Trump's decision. It's no surprise Trump would go out as he came in, crooked to the end. Earlier, Trump called into a hearing convened by Pennsylvania Republicans to see whether President-elect Joe Biden's victory can be thrown out.
This election was rigged, and we can't let that happen. We can't let it happen for our country. And this election has to be turned around because we won Pennsylvania by a lot, and we won all of these swing states by a lot. Anybody watching television the night of the election was saying, "Wow, I was called by the biggest political people. Congratulations, sir, on a big win." And all of a sudden, ballots were dumped all over the place, and a lot of horrible things happened.
Newer, bolder, more compassionate chapter.
Trump's complaints about politics, a far cry from the incoming administration's call for national unity and resilience on the eve of the U.S.'s secular holiday, Thanksgiving. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and her husband visited a Washington food bank, while Biden delivered a speech calling on Americans to find their resilience in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic.
This is the moment where we need to steel our spines, redouble our efforts, and recommit ourselves to the fight. Let's remember, we're all in this together.
Joe Biden's call for reconciliation and unity, a marked contrast in both style and substance from that of Donald Trump. Rosalind Jordan, Al Jazeera, the White House.
Hundreds of thousands of Guineans stranded in Senegal are unable to go home after political violence forced them to flee. Al Jazeera's Nicholas Hack reports.
Sheriff Abdallah is in hiding, fearing for his life. The government accuses him of creating unrest at home. As president of Guinea's Traders Union, he's calling on commerce to cease in protest against what he describes as a fraudulent election in which President Alpha Condé won a third mandate. Abdallah has been living in neighboring Senegal since last month's election.
I'm scared to go home to my own country where there are attacks and arbitrary arrests. As trade union leader, I can't stand by and let this injustice take place and tolerate what is happening.
The family of 68-year-old Ibrahim Asso say he was tortured to death by security forces after spending 3 weeks in police custody for protesting against Condé's victory.
We were all there when security forces and men carrying machetes and bats entered the house. That's when we fled. The security forces are meant to protect us, not kill us.
Protests are happening across the country with people calling for justice and defying a government ban on demonstrations. Human rights groups believe more than 50 people were either killed from bullet wounds or died in police custody. Guinea's security minister denies any wrongdoing, accusing human rights groups of tarnishing his country's image.
This is all fake news. There's an ongoing investigation. 20 autopsies have been made showing that bullets were not shot on people, but inserted in the bodies. It's irresponsible to say that the government does not care for the victims and fuels anger.
Since the presidential election, Guinea is on high alert with security forces closing land borders with neighboring countries, including Senegal, home to a large Guinean community. And so trade between the two countries is stalling. Hundreds of thousands of Guineans are stranded here, unable to return home to a country where political violence is escalating. Sheriff Abdallah hopes Guineans will eventually break free from Alpha Condé's rule and the police killings will stop so he can finally return home. Nicholas Hawk, Al Jazeera, Dakar.
And now for the weather. Present weather is fair A gentle breeze of 8 miles per hour is blowing from a northeasterly direction. Today's temperature will peak at 31 degrees Celsius, that's 87 degrees Fahrenheit. Expect fair to partly cloudy conditions with a 20% or slight chance of a light shower tonight. A weak trough just east of the islands will cause a much lighter wind flow to prevail over the Leeward Islands, the British Virgin Islands, and their coastal waters tonight and tomorrow. This, along with low moisture levels, will restrict the formation of significant clouds and showers over these islands during the period. Sunset today will be at 5:34 p.m. and the sun is expected to rise tomorrow at 6:22 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am your presenter, Shaira Flanders. Have a good one.